really a treat.
Thank you.
I think what we'll do is I'll ask a couple of questions, just because I have some things I'm curious about. It's a rare opportunity for me to pick your brain. And then we'll open it up to some questions with our students. That's all right with you?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great. I noticed that there were a couple of consistent themes, visual style themes, sort of scattered through the movie. One that really stuck out to me was that we saw some scenes where a lot of the coverage was in a single long take moving master or a sequence of long takes with maybe a few edits, but a lot of steady cam, slowly evolving coverage. Closer, all right. For example, the initial scene of the movie, the opening scene is a really wonderful, slow unfolding of information, starting with the close-up of the face in the dark, moving to the gun, and then coming back around, and slowly pulling back farther and farther away from the center of action until we get a broader sense of context, that the police are coming, that he's not afraid, that he's, there's a lot of information being delivered in a single moving shot. Also, after he's been drinking and starting fights on the street, when he gets the phone call going down in the subway and they said, you need to see this scene, he walks into the police scene, he's allowed to pass through the police tape. That's a long moving master that's very effective in delivering the point of the story. But then, of course, in contrast to that, there are some scenes with static shots and sort of standard coverage over the shoulders. My question is, what approach do you take to determining a style for a scene or a development over the entire narrative arc of a film? What is your method for nailing that down? How to approach a scene?
It really, the starting point of those sort of issues, I think, is really and the starting point for really most aspects of how to approach the photography. Camera movement's one, but the starting point, I think, is really what's called for by the story and the script, and the choreography of the action. And I think, it's a well-known fact that quick editing techniques quick cutting techniques have been used and are being used more and more as an attention-grabbing way of storytelling, or in fact not even storytelling, but presenting visuals in a film. So in answer to your question, I would say in a practical sense, I would look at the scene, what's required, and then really look at the flow of how the actors worked with the story, with the material, and if really there was something to be gained out of using that cinematic tool of a continuous moving shot, and it helped the mood and the flow of the story, something would then evolve out of that. And I guess, if that's a reasonable sort of breakdown of how the approach happens, that's at least the starting point. Mm-hmm. The evolution of a shot of a scene is really interesting. It obviously clearly starts with the script, the story, that on the day we rehearse, see how the choreography of the acting and the camera movement is so tightly intertwined that they're virtually inseparable. And one of the great beauties of cinema and the filmmaking process is marrying those things together in a sort of common language and a common approach. It's interesting. There's one scene where, if you remember, Billy comes into the mayor's office, and when the mayor proposes to him the plan, that was a 6-minute scene, and we actually shot it as one shot. And we had a few successful takes, but Alan found in the editing that he liked different parts of the performance from different takes, and this often happens when you choreograph a complex, long scene like that. Is there's an element of compromise. Now, most filmmakers, certainly most filmmakers that I would respect, will really put over and above everything else performance and storytelling. And so when you're in a situation where you've choreographed a very complex shot like that, and there's just a better performance in a couple of the different takes, you're then presented with a problem. You know, do you compromise the shot? Do you compromise the performance? And so Alan cut that sequence into several pieces, and you can see it, and it doesn't have a very natural flow editorially, that you're cutting from quite similar shots, moving shots to other similar shots. It has a sort of effect, but it was absolutely not designed to be like that. So it's an example of where you sometimes doing these single shot coverage scenes can be compromising, and what gets compromised is performance. So it's a fine line, and you have to also be aware of that when you stage a scene like that.
So being aware of that, do you have any built-in safety measures if you're going to do a 6-minute long scene in one take? You know, there may be compromises. Do you find a way to give the editor and director greater ammunition to be able to get? So what's your strategy there?
Absolutely. Often you'll set out with the plan and the idea of doing a single shot scene, and we'll do tight coverage for maybe not all of it, but for certain sequences, where it then enables the director in the edit room to
use a little bit of take 3,
to have the
and
option.
A little bit of take 7, and you know, bridge
exactly,
it with that tight
exactly.
shot in the middle.
In this particular movie, it was pretty low budget. Certainly our shooting schedule was fairly short, and that all the shooting in that set had to take place in the course of a day. And so we just
all the
didn't...
scenes in that, the mayor's office?
Yeah, we shot the day. And we just didn't have time to do the coverage. So probably we would have done coverage, but also the problem, not to drag this issue out, but I'll just make reference to it because it's a very important point that will come up maybe later, but the issue of having a safe option is a really big theme and a big issue in filmmaking, because it allows, it potentially can be damaging in the sense that compromises can be made that maybe aren't better for the final film, in the sense that if you overcover a scene, there's the potential for it to be edited many different ways, and if
and it starts to lose some specificity, the shot stuff.
Exactly, and also it also opens up what happens certainly in the commercial world of filmmaking. It opens up the possibility sometimes of a lot of different opinions coming into the process, and many opinions can drive the original core idea in a different direction. And so that's sort of an issue of authorship that is relevant to this particular discussion as well.
You mentioned early on in the answer to the original question, a quick cutting, almost MTV style, that's attention grabbing. Do you actively work against that to try and find some grace, or do you use that to try and grab some attention as well?
Yeah, I mean it's a very effective technique for specific types of filmmaking, and the problem is I think it's well acknowledged that when you're in a situation where your content, when your story, your film doesn't have the power or the weight that it certainly needs, using a technique like that can be useful to jazz things up, give it a bit of oomph.
Attention.
And this is the problem really and it's really how this technique really evolved. It was like many techniques used to cover up lack of content, really good content. And you know, the antithesis of that is, you know, the sort of Tarkovsky type filmmaking where, you know, you sit on still shots for 20 minutes and nothing happens. Now, you're able to do that if you have confidence in your material and the confidence that the fact that what you're presenting to the audience on screen is going to hold up to that sort of examination. And the problem now is, you know, in a lot of contemporary filmmaking, it doesn't stand up. You know,
Do you think it's because people are more used to a jazz style and they just don't want to
think
look at one picture for 20 minutes?
I
or
think
because
that's a big issue.
yeah, just
I
the
think
language. We've evolved
the
our
language
reading of the language.
of the media, of
Yeah.
looking at pictures and moving pictures on a screen is evolved. It has evolved. And, you know, the fact that we, you know, will now look at a screen with a whole load of different information. If it's the news, it'll have someone talking about the news. It'll have a ticker tape of stuff going on. It'll have, you know, and that's
All independent
an
of it,
evolution thing, and there's no doubt about it. There's studies been done that kids can tell, you know, young teenagers can take in a lot of different sources of information at one time. And in fact, feel happier looking at content like that. So it's part of the same discussion. This particular point is really a different thing. The attention grabbing element of it is a sort of blunt instrument often, I think, and especially in the context of, you know, serious filmmaking, let's say.